What's up, galera? Today I have my friend Chris here with me.
What's up, guys?
We are going to talk about a few myths in Brazil, a little bit of stereotypes that people have about Brazil, and we're going to demystify them. Is that the word?
I think demystify, debunk.
Debunk.
I think in
Debunk's
Brazil
a better
they
word.
say demask.
Demask. We're gonna take off the mask of these lies. Not all lies, but we'll explain them a little bit better. I think the first one we should talk about is the fact that a lot of Americans, a lot of foreigners tend to think that all Brazilians live in favelas.
Yeah, I mean it's a stereotype, and yes, some Brazilians do live in favelas. Actually, we found out that it's 6%.
6%.
So it's not a large number, only 6% of people. But a lot of Americans, especially when they think of Brazil, they think of favelas. They think of the movies. They think of the TV shows that show Brazil in this light. And then they think, oh, okay, all Brazilians live in favelas, but it's just not true. Not even the majority live, not anywhere close.
Yeah, I think it's mainly because of the success of City of God, which is an amazing movie, by the way.
Yes.
But that's not the reality for most Brazilians. But a lot of Brazilians do live in favelas. At 6% of 200 million people, it tends to be a lot. So, and you will notice them if you go to Rio. They are in the touristic zone, so you can be in a very nice beach, and behind you see a favela. And there are some tours where you can visit. Just be careful. Not every favela is pacified or safe. They do exist, but the majority of the people do not live in favelas.
Yeah, and most people recommend that if you're going to visit a favela, make sure to go with a tour guide or someone who lives in the community, someone who can and show you around and make sure you're safe. So it's not all favelas. In fact, Brazil is a beautiful place with plenty of places to discover outside of just favelas.
Mm-hmm. The second one, this one is kind of a little bit prejudiced.
Yes.
Very prejudiced, actually.
Yes.
That Brazilians all want to marry an American or foreigner for a green card.
Yeah, it's in fact you could even say it's a bit xenophobic because when we think of Brazilians, a lot of times when Americans think of Brazilians, they're thinking of the Brazilians that they know from TV shows, reality shows like 90 Day Fiance, and in those shows,
Where Are My Flowers?
Where Are My Flowers? Exactly. Have you seen that? Larissa, she shows up and the guy, he didn't bring her flowers, and she goes, "Where are my flowers?" But that's not the majority of Brazilian women, but that's the picture that's portrayed, is that these women, they want to get married to a foreigner, they want to get the green card, and then they want to get out of the marriage, and that's far from the truth.
I think it's not only Brazilians, it's Latinas in general.
Yeah.
They get that stereotype a lot, that they want to just get married for a green card. And there are a lot of Brazilian and American couples that work very well. They're completely natural, organic, loving marriages. So if you want to meet a nice Brazilian, I recommend it, but don't think that they're after your green card.
Yeah, and in fact, there's a lot of Brazilian women that don't even want to live in the United States, and so it's even, to go even further, that you can't even say that all Brazilians, they want to move from Brazil, because Brazil's a great place to live, so not all people want to leave it. Okay, so the next myth is Brazilians don't live in the Amazon. They don't all live in the Amazon.
Okay, a lot of people think that Brazil is just the Amazon.
Yeah, and how many states does the Amazon make up? It's like 4 or 5.
It makes up a big geographic territory, but not that big of a population.
Not a lot of people, right? Not a lot of people live in the Amazon.
A lot of people do live there, but compared to the population of
Right.
Brazil, not that many. You have cities like Belém and Manaus, which have over 2 million people.
Yeah.
And they're in the Amazon. There's like 5 or 6 states that are in the Amazon. I don't know exactly. And there is a state called Amazonas, which is the biggest geographical state in Brazil. Most of the people tend to live in the southeast, São Paulo, Rio, Minas Gerais.
Right.
That makes up the biggest part of the population. While a lot of people do live in the Amazon, you should definitely visit if you get the chance. Most Brazilians have never visited because it is quite expensive for people to travel to the Amazon. So people's daily life in Brazil does not consist of rowing in a canoe in the Amazon. But I have done that, and it's an amazing experience. But don't assume just because someone is in Brazil. I mean, Sao Paulo to the Amazon is really far. Rio to the Amazon is really far.
Right. And so I think that's one of the common questions that some Brazilians get from gringos is like, oh, you're from Brazil? You live in the Amazon? So that's just not the case. In fact, Sao Paulo is the largest city in South America.
Yes.
So definitely that's not the case. The next myth.
They do live in the Mata Atlântica. That's Rio and a lot of São Paulo is in the Atlantic rainforest, which is different from the Amazon rainforest. So you can go to a place like Tijuca forest in Rio, and see rainforest, but not the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah.
You see some cool animals, nice waterfalls. I recommend it.
Yeah. So the next myth is a very popular and unfortunate myth, a stereotype about Brazilians, is that they speak Spanish, and they don't. Brazilians do not speak Spanish, and they don't speak Brazilian. They speak Portuguese.
They do speak a special type of Portuguese.
Yeah, and it's called Portuguese Brazilian, like Brazilian Portuguese,
just
but
like American English versus British English is quite different from Portuguese from Portugal. But some people do speak Spanish, like anywhere else in the world, but it's not their official language.
And why do you think that so many people have this stereotype? Why do so many people think that Brazilians speak Spanish?
Well, there is a little bit of logic that almost every country in Latin America speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
Except for Brazil is the only Portuguese-speaking country.
So it's easy to categorize everyone in this bubble of South America.
It's just a lack of basic education in our schools about other countries, especially in the United States. We don't really learn about other cultures.
Yeah,
we might learn a little bit about England or France, but that's about it.
There's a meme, like a meme in Brazil. They always like to joke about us Americans, how we don't have geography class. We don't study geography because we know so little, and it's true. A lot of us know so little about South America and the various other countries in the world, continents. No, I just said countries. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Like, we just don't know the language that all these countries speak, and so a lot of times that's where this type of thing comes from. And so I and Tim as well, we always try to help people understand that they speak Portuguese in Brazil, and there's a lot of other things that Brazilians do that we need to teach the world.
So vamos aprender português.
Yes.
First of all, I think that Brazil is extremely violent, and there is a problem with violence here, definitely. But there are many neighborhoods and many cities that are completely safe. In fact, if you compare them to some American cities, they're safer.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that it is something that probably scares away a lot of people from traveling to Brazil, visiting Brazil, is, like we said before, movies like City of God, the portrayal of Brazil in the media of the favelas and the violence in the favelas and the statistics on crime. People think that when they come to Brazil, they're immediately going to get assaulted. And that's just not the case. And especially if you know someone.
And if you're smart, you have to be smart. Like, I think anywhere, any big city, you shouldn't be going to the neighborhoods that aren't that safe by yourself. There's no real reason. In fact, right now I'm in a neighborhood in Sao Paulo called Vila Madalena, and it's extremely safe, extremely bohemian, a lot of boutique shops, not what you picture when you see Brazil on the news.
Yeah, and if you walk around at 1 a.m. And you enter a dark alley and you've got the brand new iPhone in your hand and your wallet sticking out your back pocket, I mean, you're asking for something bad to happen, and that doesn't mean it's just Brazil. He's from New York. If you do that in New York, something bad could happen. I'm from Detroit. Around Detroit. I'm from around Detroit.
Take it easy, Eminem.
Hey, Detroit. It's one of the highest murder rates in the United States, and also just crime in general. And it's not somewhere I would want to travel to, and especially at night, I would want to be safe. So there's places in Brazil definitely that are more dangerous than others, and I think it's important that we recognize that it's not all of Brazil that's dangerous. It's just certain places are more dangerous than others.
Use your head. Be smart.
That's all it is.
But you can definitely enjoy this country without getting in any kind of danger, any kind of trouble. Okay, a lot of people think Brazil is poor, and I would not say Brazil is poor. I would say Brazil is unequal. The income is not. Yeah. When you look at the country, it's one of the biggest economies in the world. Before the pandemic and kind of the economic depression, I think it was ahead of England. It was almost ahead of England.
I think so.
It fell back a little bit. It's not going through its best economic time, but there is a lot of money and a lot of wealth here. You can even see it sometimes. It's juxtaposed with poor neighborhoods. Have you ever seen that photo of Morumbi and Paraisópolis?
No, I haven't seen that one. Let's put that photo up here.
So that's it's kind of a shocking image, but you can see that kind of contrast of rich and poor here. And I always wanted to say that there's a lot of industries in Brazil. It's not just agriculture, although it is the biggest coffee exporter in the world. Yep. It's the third biggest airplane. What would be the correct nomenclature for airplane industry?
Aeronautics.
There you go.
And then there's sugarcane as well, right?
Sugarcane is big, but Embraer is the third biggest after Boeing and Unibus, I think. So it's the third biggest. They focus on short haul jets. Ambev, which is basically the owner of all beers in the world, is owned by 3 Brazilians. So if you're drinking a Budweiser, it's Brazilian. They bought up Burger King. So there is.
I knew Burger King. Yes, I heard about that.
They bought up Heinz ketchup. They're buying up everything.
So there's a lot of money in Brazil.
A lot of money. It's not very well distributed, but that's something I think could change in the future.
Okay, so Brazil is definitely more than Rio and Sao Paulo, right?
Yes.
I think there's 26 states in Brazil, including there's a.
It could be 26 or 27. I was with the count. I'm sorry. I'm a little off.
Yeah.
United States is easier 'cause it's 50. It's a nice round number to
Yeah.
remember.
I believe that there's 26, and then there's like an extra thing that's something else. It's not a district.
Kind of like Washington, D.C.
Federal district?
Federal district.
Okay. But definitely there's a lot more than just Rio and Sao Paulo, and unfortunately that's just what we generalize about Brazil. We as Americans, and then foreigners at large, they think Sao Paulo, they think Rio de Janeiro, but there's so much beauty and there's so much diversity in Brazil. It's not even just the beaches that are beautiful. There's places in the interior where you can find mountains. You can find German, like European influenced cities.
Yeah, there's little like German and Italian colonies where people actually speak like a dialect that they don't even understand in Germany anymore.
Oh.
It's one of the most European immigration. I think Brazil only behind United States and Argentina received the most European immigration.
Really?
Also a lot of Syrian and Lebanese people, and
Yep.
a lot of Japanese people, especially in Sao Paulo. There's a huge Japanese community. There's a few cities in the interior of Sao Paulo where baseball is big because of the Japanese community.
Oh.
So it's a very diverse country. There's a mixture of European, Asian,
Italian too,
African, Italian.
Yeah.
Sao Paulo is a super Italian city. You can find some great pizza. There's some neighborhoods where you basically feel like you're in Italy because the people they're talking
Seriously.
like this. Mocha would be an example of that. So it's extremely diverse. It's not one thing. I think people tend to think of Brazil only as like one type of physical geography and one type of appearance.
Yep.
But there's no way to look Brazilian.
There's
come
no
in all
way.
shapes and sizes. Personalities.
Yeah, you'll find people with blonde hair and blue eyes in Brazil, and that's not something that a lot of people in the United States think about. They don't know that. They don't know that there's so much diversity among Brazilians. And in fact, here's a fun fact for you: Blumenau has the largest Oktoberfest gathering outside of coronavirus times in the world outside of Germany. So,
little fun fact.
so that's pretty crazy. Oktoberfest, one of the largest Oktoberfests in the world, is in Brazil. Who would have ever thought that? So I definitely would highly recommend traveling to some different parts of Brazil, not just Rio, not just Sao Paulo. In fact, there's the sand dunes in the north, in Jericoacoara, Maranhão, Lençóis Maranhenses.
Lençóis
Maranhenses. Okay, that's very difficult to say, but we'll put it down here for you guys to go there. Definitely check out some photos. It's beautiful. So there's so much about Brazil. Definitely. That's worth it. Okay, so I put down the sexualization of Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil is highly sexualized in the media. I think it has a lot to do with carnival and kind of beaches are. Anytime you're at the beach, it's a more sensual place. People are walking around in bikinis, so that's what you do in the beach. But it's like we said, it's a very diverse country, and there's certain people that are more liberal and have liberal attitudes towards sex, and there are other parts of the country or other places where people are very traditional, conservative, and like still like ask the parents if you can date, and so it's very diverse. There's a huge evangelical population too, so it's hard to assume someone's sexual appetite just by the country. Everyone's an individual. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own little personality and views on that. So I think it's important not to overly sexualize a group of people.
Yeah, and I feel like part of it might even be just the differences between our culture and the Brazilian culture is that Brazilians, they show their affection physically a lot more, and it's a lot more common, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're more sexual. So when they're kissing their significant other on the street, for example, that can be kind of a weird flag for us. When we first see it, we're just like,
public display of affection.
Public display of affection. That's kind of weird for us. So to see that, we might think, oh, like they're more of a sexual type people, but that's not necessarily true. They just show their affection a lot more publicly, and they're a lot more proud to display that. And I actually think that's a beautiful thing. So
even amongst family, they hug more, they kiss more. It's just more. Carinhoso would be the word in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Affectionate.
Well, and I even told my mom this, as I recognized in Brazil that it's not just the parents that would hold their children's hand walking down the street, but you'll often find like adults holding the hands of their parents on the street. So like someone who's older, they take care of their elderly, they're respected, and I think that's kind of a cool thing too.
Just want to close on one more thing. I think people generally think of Brazilian music as samba and bossa nova, and now people might start to hear about funk. I know Cardi B just did a funk song on the Grammys.
Yep.
And funk is a type of music that comes from the favela, and it's very popular in Brazil, but it's also not universally loved by everyone. In fact, it's pretty controversial. Some of the lyrics, as you can imagine, are pretty explicit, but it is part of a culture that represents a group of people, and not all funk is the same. Not all funk has bad words. There's plenty of funk that talks about like working hard and you know, making money to support your family. So funk is not one thing, but also there are so many different styles of music. Brazil is one of the most is one of the richest place in the world for music. You can start from, you know, samba, axé, sertanejo, pagode, rock. There's a big Brazilian rock scene.
Curitiba, the capital of rock in Brazil. Oh my gosh! And they have so much great music, really, that to just generalize and think that it's only samba and only funk, it would be wrong to do that. And I think that funk is only a small part, but if you search about Brazilian music, you're definitely going to find funk music. Just remember that there's a lot more to Brazilian music than just funk.
And people don't really listen to bossa nova that much anymore. It's not as common.
Not so much.
I think we listen to more bossa nova in the United States than people do in Brazil. But it is a very beautiful and poetic style of music. So if you haven't listened to Girl from Ipanema, I think Girl from Ipanema is the second most played song in the history of the world. Yeah,
and I know that, for example, Frank Sinatra did a version of that song.
From Hoboken, my town. Shout out to Frank Sinatra up there in heaven looking down on us.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's it. I think that you know, should help you with a few myths. Brazil is everything. Can be everything, you know, it's not one thing. I think you really need to come down here and experience it. Right now it's construction and it's motorcycles. So thank you, Chris. I'll leave Chris' information down here. You can check out his channel. He also talks about Brazil, different stuff in his day-to-day life and his reaction to Brazilian culture. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, no problem. Tamo junto.
Tamo junto. Peace.